Issues of youth unemployment coming under the spotlight today. This is where the United Nations Development Programme, working with the Human Sciences Research Council, have gathered a report here just to look at youth unemployment in the country and how those interventions can come through in terms of those policies. This is where then we are seeing the National Youth Development Agency along other entities as well just coming here to just get a sense of this report that was done by these two entities. We know as well that later on in the afternoon we'll be seeing the Deputy President Paul Mashatile as well taken to the podium here as we'll be receiving the report from these entities. I'm going to bring into the conversation one role player from the United Nations, Mr. Rogers, who just let us in on this report. We know very well that you worked with the Human Sciences Research Council on this report under the spotlight, being issues of youth unemployment in the country as we speak right now. Over 50% of young people are unemployed. Maybe just let us in on why we find ourselves here and how did we really get to see these two entities working to get this report out?
You know, how we came about working on this report is really to look at youth employment from a human development perspective. And the human development perspective is different from the standard, development, model, which talks about, you can increase economic growth. And once you increase economic growth, there'll be a trickle-down effect to everybody. What we say, a rising tide lifts all boats. But, this UNDP approach to human development, actually, it's a different approach, which says development is about increasing people's choices and capabilities. And when we talk of capabilities, we are talking of investment in knowledge, in health. And taking this approach, economic growth is a means, not an end, to actually increase people's capabilities. So this report looks at the youth unemployment in South Africa from that perspective, drawing also from other experience from the other countries. How have other countries addressed issues of youth unemployment? And also looking at even the macroeconomic setting in South Africa. Is it conducive to actually generate jobs for the youth? The issue of the quality of education and so on. And really what is important for this report is, UNDP and HSRC, we are proposing that we need this social compact really to address youth unemployment in South Africa. Government, private sector, all civil society and so on need to come together to really address these challenges. Also, the education sector needs to play its role to really make sure that, we really prepare this youth for the 20th century jobs. Because as we know that the fourth industrial revolution is here, even, artificial intelligence and so on. We need to prepare our youth to seize those opportunities of the 20th century.
I mean, obviously, this needs all hands on deck, concerted efforts to ensure that we get the best out of this. What have been the concerns coming from the United Nations, especially around how South Africa is faring, because we keep seeing these numbers of those that are unemployed just ballooning without any intervention or no end in terms of what has been happening here in the country? What have been your concern as the United Nations?
I think, the thing is, I think this disjointed approach, that we don't have this, multi-stakeholder approach to really address these challenges. There are a lot of interventions which are happening to really address this youth unemployment. But we see that, these partners are working in separate ways. So I think what is important is to map what is happening in youth employment and to address youth unemployment, and really for these partners to come together to learn from each other to see how they can fine-tune some of these, the challenges of youth unemployment. Mm-hmm. Because one thing which we find is these youth, one challenge they face is to transition from education to employment. It's because they don't have a network. And most of employers need people with skills. But how do you bridge that skills gap? You need apprenticeship. You need even National Youth Service, and because that builds a network. And once they have that network, it can help them to navigate the employment space. And even the basic thing of waking up and going to work, you can only develop it if you are attached to employment, attached to internship. Even some of it, we think also the youth need to change their mindset. And when we are talking of the mindset, we are saying they also need to take these menial jobs because they help you to build a network. Because what tends to happen with our youth, most of them, they think once they finish school, they need to go to an office and get a job and even drive the most expensive car. So we also need the youth themselves to change their mindset also working with other youth organizations and so on. I think to me that will also help. And also even fine-tuning the social protection system in South Africa, because we know that in terms of spatial planning of the country, most of these youth stay very far from where jobs are. So going to look for jobs, transport costs are very high, even the cost of data and so on. So we may need to fine-tune the social protection system to give even these youth transport vouchers, data vouchers, so that actually they can move to go and look for jobs and even access data and even train them even to do their CVs and so on. Working with even youth organizations, civil society organizations and community organizations where they live.
Mr. Rogers, thank you very much, sir, for your time. Let me release you. You have really a huge task ahead in terms of releasing this report, the South African National Human Development Report 2022. And this is where the entities here will be releasing it. And later on, we'll be seeing the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, as well, just take to the podium here to deliver a keynote address. I'm Katlego Legodi, SABC News in Pretoria.